Hi, everybody. First of all, Shalom Aleichem. Nice to meet you all.
Aleichem Shalom.
Thank you. I guess one of you I know already, I think. Yeah, for sure. That's right. That's right. Yeah, so very good. But I just want to point out that Rabbi Smith missed many, many, many things that I've done. I mean, the list goes on much, much longer. He only gave me half an hour, so I figured in a half an hour you can't list my accomplishments. So I didn't want to tell him any of them. That was humor, by the way, guys. You can smile. I'm just kidding. So yeah, you look, I'll be honest with you. I told Rabbi Smith has invited me a number of times to come speak to his Zoom meetings, his Zoom groups, and I pushed back. And even in my own community, people have been asking me to make Zoom. I don't do as well on Zoom as I would like to, but I'm giving it a shot. So I hope I do well. I like being with people. I like seeing people and talking to people and just enjoying their response and my response to their response. So to me, it's really very difficult to speak in this kind of, or to share in this kind of environment because we're not together. You know what I'm saying? But on the other hand, Rabbi Smith convinced me that we are together. You know, it's true that we're physically distant, but in our hearts and in our souls and in our way of looking at the world and in what we're able to accomplish, we're really all one. You know what I'm saying? So yes, we're distant. It's not as natural as usual, but here we are. We're all one together in our fervent desire to make this world a better place. Is there some truth to this?
It's the best we're gonna get, so we gotta accept it.
But my question is, when I say is there truth to this, I mean to say, is there truth to the fact that we're all one, no matter where we are?
And we really are together. We really are together, Rabbi. Honestly, I'm 72 years old and this is my first Zoom, but I've learned more Torah in less than a year than I ever have in my entire life.
Well, there you go.
It's a very personal thing, a very personal. Rabbi Smith and the students are incredible. They're helping.
So, kudos to you, Rabbi Smith, and thank you for sharing that. Once again, proving me wrong. I like to be proven wrong. It helps in one of our primary objectives as a chassid, which is one of the primary objectives is a word called bittul. Has anybody heard of the word bittul before? B-I-T-T-U-L, or Beis Yud Tes Vav Lamed. Yes, okay, we got one bittul guy there. Awesome. If you have a lot of bittul, raise your hand. Bittul is a strong word, a difficult word. Rabbi Smith gave me a wide open mic today, so I hope I don't ramble too much. But bittul is one of the big Hasidic, what's the word I'm looking for? One of the qualities that we look to achieve.
What does it mean exactly?
So what does it mean literally? It means the way they translate it in English, many Hebrew words, the way they're translated don't really carry the full connotation. But the way that they translate it into English is nullification. Sometimes self-nullification.
Oh.
There's a lot of problems with that translation though. I just came back from an amazing weekend, really highly inspirational, and I saw Rabbi Smith there as well. We were at the conference of the Chabad rabbis, the international conference of the Chabad rabbis, and the big conversation of the conversation was the last sicha, and if you don't know what that means, I'll explain in a moment. But the last sicha that the Rebbe gave to the shluchim, to the Chabad rabbis, in what year is that? That's 1992, right? Or is it 93 already? And in this sicha, he explains some amazing ideas, some amazing concepts. And I'm not ignoring your question. I'm coming back to bittul in a minute. And he explains in this sicha that a shliach, which means a messenger, literally, has to have two things happening at the same time. He's got to be all in 100% with all of his capability, all of his energy, and all of who he is, all of his person or her. Obviously, for me, it's him. All of his or her personality. He's got to be in 100%. He's got to be the full him. But on the other hand, he's got to have 100% bittul. So coming back to bittul, I didn't explain bittul yet in a minute, but if we use the word self-nullification, that's the exact opposite of what I just explained to you. You know what I mean? If self is completely nullified, then where's the all-in? It doesn't work. So we use the word self-nullification. Just to add two ideas, by the way, to that sikha, very important, and it's not the topic I want to talk on, but we mentioned it. The Rabbi explains that shluchim, which are the emissaries, are not only the rabbis or the rebbitzins. It's literally every single Jew on the planet. There's no Jew on the planet, and merely, to a certain degree, even every human on the planet, but especially every Jew on the planet, who does not have a shlichus, does not have a message to carry to the world. I often joke with my family, and they're very disturbed by it, but I'll share it with you guys because nobody here is technically family, that nobody in the world actually needs me. My daughter heard it in the other room. She's already upset. That nobody in the world actually needs me. If chas v'shalom, I had to take a very long distance from the world, in the end, they'll figure it all out. You know what I'm saying? They'll figure out how to manage. They'll work somehow or another. The one who actually needs me is Hashem. What's my proof? I'm here. If I'm here, it means Hashem needs me. And that's not just me because I'm a rabbi, it's me because I'm a human being. Hashem needs every person on this planet. Every person who he continues to bring into existence at every moment is absolutely necessary to the grand plan. So that was one other point that the Rebbe makes in the Sikha about the fact that every person, and especially every Jew, is really a shliach as well. It's not just the guys who carry the title per se. But in addition to that, he also reminded us, and not only reminded us, told us that this is a new era, and this is the era of Mashiach. And as such, all of our efforts and all of our work, which means, again, not just the guys who have the beards or the ladies who are married to them for some strange reason, but every human being throughout their day has opportunities to bring Mashiach into the world. So, for example, if you're a nurse, I know one of your professions here. Anybody else got a profession you want to share real quick? You could put in the chat. Wow, a lot of professionals. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. You don't have to share if you don't want, but I'm just saying, whatever it is you're doing throughout your day, or you're not working anymore, you're more involved in other pursuits, and you're involved in being a mother, a grandmother, a grandfather, or a husband, or a wife. Throughout every step of our day, we're the purpose of that day is to really make this world into that perfect place that Hashem has in mind for it. And that's, of course, the Mashiach. In other words, we really have the opportunity. No, not Nicholas. Thanks. My daughter's coming to ask me some questions. So we really have that opportunity to really transform the world in each of our pursuits throughout everything that we're doing. And it's not just the big things and not just the religious things and not just it's literally everything. I mean, there's nothing, as long as it's not prohibited by the Torah, that we cannot use to bring godliness into the world and to transform the world into a better and more perfect place. And that's really what that sikha was all about. But that was a long way of coming back to your question, which is, what is bittul? So again, we got to bring it our all, bring it every single thing. So where does bittul come into the picture? If I'm going to be the biggest, greatest Rafi Rosenberg I possibly could be, then self-nullification does not seem to be a good word. Does that make sense to you?
Rabbi, are you talking about getting rid of self-importance?
We're getting there. Well done, Susan. Is it Susan or Dory?
It's my friends call me Dory, but
Can I call you Dory then?
please, please.
Okay, Dory. Yeah, so self-importance is definitely part of the issue, but even there I'm going to have to debate, because I just explained to you literally how we're all important. So if I'm going to get rid of
In the big
self-importance,
picture, we're all important in the big picture, yes. And we need to, we can't think of ourselves as only by ourselves. We have to think of the totality, the total scheme of life, is what you're saying, correct?
so where I would go to it basically, I don't want to be too like coy and to play around. Let's just get straight to the point and hopefully this will tie into what you're saying, is it's a matter of realizing that I am extraordinarily important, and the self is very important, but it's not about me. It's about Hashem. In other words, everything that I'm doing, including enjoying my time talking to you, it can all be not about me. It's not directed to me. That doesn't mean I'm not allowed to enjoy myself, and it does not mean I'm not allowed to appreciate when somebody gives me a compliment. It does not mean any of that. But it means that my entire being, my entire way of thinking is about what am I doing here? What is my purpose here? Why did Hashem give me another 5 minutes on this earth? What does Hashem want from me?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because
You know what I mean?
I got 20 extra years from my
Well, there you go.
okay.
You know exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
And I just had my 50th birthday and I had 50 extra years. Now, I don't mean it in the same way you meant it.
No.
But that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? The fact that I was on this earth for 50 years means I had 50 years of things that had to happen. Things that Hashem wanted me to do. So that's a big, big deal in Hasidus. There's a big, big deal in Hasidus. It translates into many things. It does translate into a little bit of lack of self-importance, in the sense that we don't take ourselves so seriously. We take ourselves seriously in terms of what we're capable of. We take ourselves seriously in terms of expectations of ourselves. But we don't take ourselves seriously that if somebody, hurts my feelings a little bit, okay, you make a joke out of it, you move on. It's not about me.
Right.
There's a disappointment in life. Okay, it's disappointing. Next, move on. Because my life is not about my appointments or my excitements or my disappointments. My life is, what am I here to do to help Hashem in his mission? What does Hashem want from me? It takes in this conference, my pleasure. Pardon me, I'm going to just grab my drink here. A Farbrengen, by the way, is meant to be had with drinks, but this red Solo cup is full of orange juice, so don't get excited.
I'm glad you called it a
the red Solo cup reference. Well done. So at this conference, my particular pleasure at the conference is spending time with my dear friends like Rabbi Smith. Not so much in the more what's it called, formal parts of the conference, although those are always wonderful and inspiring, but in the informal Farbrengens. I know at least 3 of you are very clear on what a Farbrengen is, but who else here knows what a Farbrengen is? Just raise your hand super fast if you know what it means. Good.
Sort of.
Good. Sort of. Okay. In my world, in my way of thinking, and there are those who disagree with me, I believe that all of life is a Farbrengen. in this sense, I'm very similar and very different to the bard, the great, supposedly great playwright, Mr. Shakespeare, who says all of life is a stage. I'm going to go with all of life is a farbrengen.
How interesting.
And a farbrengen, essentially, it can have different meanings and different styles, but the farbrengen that I'm referring to is just a bunch of guys. In my case, it could be girls as well. Typically shouldn't be the both, for various reasons. But a bunch of guys who sit around, normally with at least some alcohol, sometimes with a lot of alcohol. It doesn't have to be. If there's, people who should not be touching alcohol, they could still bring plenty without alcohol as well. But it typically features some alcohol there to loosen up the conversation a little bit. And it's just informal hanging out together with the at least official objective of taking on good resolutions. I would say that at least 80 to 90% of the Farbrengens I've been to, it does not meet its objective. But the 2 or 3 out of the 100 that meet its objective were worth the other 98. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And at these Farbrengens, the reason I bring it up in this context is oftentimes a lot of self and other deprecating humor. How shall I put it? The guys get together, and you don't take each other so seriously. I mean, you do take each other seriously, but in a very informal way. And you don't, you have to be careful. At Farbrengens, you can insult someone, so you don't want to do that. But on the other hand, you don't mind calling each other out a little bit. You know what I mean? You could call each other out a little bit in gentle, kind ways, but with a little humor here and there. But the hope is that you're really doing it with the other person's best interest in mind. And if you're not, then you should just be quiet. But the point I'm bringing out is that's another place where this bittul idea kind of shows up a little bit. I was at one particular farbrengen this trip in 770 Eastern Parkway that pretty much lasted from 12 at night to 7 in the morning. It was intense. It was real deal. But my point I guess I'm trying to make is this. You brought up, I don't know, how do we get onto bittul? I lose my track.
I didn't know what it meant.
But why did I bring it up to begin with? I was going somewhere. Anybody remember? Rabbi Smith?
Qualification and
That was the first word you said.
Anyhow,
You just decided that would be your topic of discussion.
I didn't even know it would be, but it wound up being.
You were saying that it's an essential concept in Hasidus.
And I was, but I'm trying to remember. I was like starting to say something, and then we hit bittul. Anyhow, whatever. Here we are. So
you're talking about the last talk from 1990.
Yeah, that all came. Let's stay on the last talk. Let's keep it this way. And I do want to mention one other thing that I know I wanted to hit, but I was going somewhere before this all, before we got sidetracked. By the way, that's very typical of Farbrengens as well. So we're at a Farbrengen, we're doing almost everything right. Self-deprecating humor. I haven't made fun of any of you because I don't know you well enough. Otherwise, I'd make fun of you. Except maybe, except for maybe one of the Three Stooges who are here. Him I can make fun of a little bit. Did we get it? Yes. Okay, we got the reference. That's what you give me for the Three Stooges, huh? There we go. Well done. So, this sikha to me was very, to all of us, it was very transformative in many ways. Firstly, the Rebbe's clear insistence that the main objective of Chabad today has to be, and that everything that we're involved in all of our good, important work, like Rabbi Smith making this beautiful Farbrengen, myself involved in all the teaching that I do and all of the outreach work and the synagogue that I have and all these kind of things, at the end of the day, we have to remember exactly what the purpose is. And the purpose is to completely transform this world that we live in. to be a world that is bittul, I got to use the word again, that is batal to the creator. As a matter of fact, the very purpose of creation is this. So now we're not talking, what's the meaning of life? Everyone, Chabad has an easy, not Chabad, Hasidus has an answer in 2 seconds. It's not a complex question. It's a very simple question. The meaning of life is Yakiru v'yedu kol yeshvei sevel, that every inhabitant of this planet will become aware of the creator. Period. Simple. Done. Any other questions? Now that we know the meaning of life, do you have any other questions? No, we're good. But it is. That's the meaning of life. L'chaim. The question is, of course, for each one of us.
What comes after that, Rabbi?
I'm sorry?
What comes after that? If every inhabitant will become aware of the creator, what happens after that?
That's what you need Rabbi Smith for.
Okay, I'll ask him.
No, I'm kidding. I can give a quick answer. I do want to just stay focused. It's a good question. It's an excellent question. It's a complex question too. So yeah, I think we're going to need Rabbi Smith will have to maybe carry that on another topic, if you don't mind, Rabbi.
I'll remind him not to worry.
But really, when God created the world in Hasidic understanding, and not only Hasidic understanding, Torah understanding, his purpose was to create an environment in which his presence is everywhere, but is completely not noticeable. And then to have human beings notice it. In other words, and this again is not where I planned on going, but we're here already. What's the language that the Torah uses to describe creation? What's the verb the Torah uses to describe the way Hashem created the world? The verb, not the adjective. Speech. God said, let there be light. God said, let there be a firmament. Everybody knows what a firmament is, right? Yeah, great. Nobody knows what a firmament is, but he said it. Apparently, anyhow, God said. He wasn't speaking to anybody. Who was he speaking? So there's many, many deep explanations of why we have that word choice. But one of the primary explanations is when you speak, there's a listener, which means that through every item in creation, through every object, through every atom, every molecule, every tree, every rock, every star in the sky, God is literally speaking. But it's very difficult to hear. It becomes our job to learn how to listen. Does that make sense?
It's beautiful.
So, thank you. But it's not mine, so I won't take the compliment, but I appreciate that. This is Hasidus 101. And that becomes literally, it's not just a matter of going to the beautiful sunset, which of course that's a wonderful place to do it as well. But it's also, I'll tell you a super quick story. And my daughter's outside the room. I hope she doesn't listen. No, she can, it's fine. But my daughter called me a week and a half ago, and she said, Tati, I was on my way home from Boca Raton, dropping off my friend, and on the 95, which if you live in Florida, you know the 95 is a serious highway, and I got into an accident. Thank God she's well, the other driver's well, there's nobody got hurt, was the good news. And I was contemplating the next morning, I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, if you listen to that sentence, every word in that sentence was a blessing except for the last word. I have a daughter. She has friends. She cares enough about her friends to drive them to Boca, which is an hour drive. She's capable of driving a car. I was privileged enough to own a car. She has a telephone. She calls me when she has a problem. There's blessing after blessing after blessing after blessing after blessing. The very last sentence, and I got in an accident. The last word was an issue. If we're really smart, even that becomes a blessing. But if we can just listen for 5 minutes, literally everything we do in life, every single thing. I saw engineer to Ezra, that was you. Engineer to teacher, right? As an engineer, every design that you create or every problem that you solve or every problem that you discover can ultimately be part of this colossal plan that Hashem has for the world, where the world becomes this much better by becoming cognizant of Him. You know what I'm saying? It does not require a rabbi on a Zoom to bring godliness into the world. Every activity that we're involved in can be part of this effort to bring Mashiach, part of this effort to make the world into this transformed place where it's very clear who the balabas, who the owner of this planet is, who the creator of this planet is. So we each do it in our own little way. And I don't want to take away from the idea. I keep pushing the idea that it doesn't have to be in religion, but it should be in religion too. It should be with an extra mitzvah. It should be with more Torah study. It should be with deeper contemplation during prayer. Of course, that's the way it should be. It should be with extra tzedakah, especially, and especially to Jewish generations, if we're giving tzedakah already. Sorry, Rabbi, I had to go there, but it's true. When we give tzedakah properly, and I think I'm going to conclude with this idea, actually, and I know I jumped all over the place, but let's call it, what was his name? The beatnik writer, the early beatnik writer. What was his name?
Allen Ginsberg?
No, not Allen Ginsberg. The one who wrote about the drive, the road, whatever it was.
Hunter Thompson?
Jack Kerouac. Thank you. Jack Kerouac. There we go.
That's what I said.
A stream of consciousness here. I didn't really follow the plan that I had walked in with, but a stream of consciousness here. But the point is, where's it going? I just lost it again. Boy. Davening. We are davening.
The journey.
Oh yes, one last story. I said about giving tzedakah. The three things I would say, if I were really pushed with my back against the wall, of what the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Hasidus, was really most interested in, that in terms of transforming and affecting other people, was in their Torah study, was in their prayer, service of the heart, and in the way they give tzedakah, the way they give charity. And the expectation that the Alter Rebbe had for giving tzedakah was, you don't give tzedakah from the leftovers. You don't say, well, I'm going to give tzedakah. Thank God, my budget is for a month is okay. Let's just inflate it by a little bit. Is only $100,000 a month. Okay, right, guys, we got to live a good life. And thank God, I have $110,000 a month, so I'll give the 10,000. You know what I mean? That's not what his expectation of tzedakah. His expectation of tzedakah is, I have a necessity for $100,000 a month, and I only make $100,000 a month. I'll still give 10,000. That's the expectation of tzedakah. But he goes a step further, and here's where my story, and I'll conclude with this final story. And a quick l'chaim first, l'chaim. In the mid and late 1940s, there was a Jewish human smuggling ring. Okay, a Jewish human smuggling ring. But they were not smuggling people across the border of Mexico, and they weren't taking money. These were Chabadniks getting people out of Soviet Russia. Obviously, if you got caught, and one of the great smugglers of the time, Reb Mendel Futterfass, did get caught and wound up in Siberia for almost 10 years. So if you got caught, it was not good for you. So they were very, very careful of who they would speak to, who they wouldn't speak to, and who they would let in, and who they would smuggle and who they wouldn't smuggle. Comes along a guy who they don't recognize. And he says, I would like you to help me get out. And they're like, who are you? We don't know who you are. What are you talking about? I know you get out, get lost. He said, I know that you don't trust me because you don't know me, but I know Zalman Moshe, very famous Hasidic person. It piqued their interest. Really, tell us about the Zalman Moshe guy. So he tells them the following story. He says, in 1917 or 18, during the revolution, the Russian Revolution, people were literally starving in the streets, as we all know. I mean, it made no difference, Jewish, not Jewish, this, that. People were starving in the streets. There was no food. And I was going from town to town, trying to literally put food into my mouth. I could not find food anywhere. And I wind up in this town, this very Chabad town. Yeah, it's late. It's fine. Everyone's got to go. Don't be shy. I'll just finish the story for whoever's here. I have to go too, by the way. We're in this town, and I go into the Chabad shul, and in the Chabad shul, I see a rabbi, white beard, sitting and praying. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which means he's been praying. He didn't start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's what I would do. He was starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's been praying since 7 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I go over to him, and I ask him, perhaps you have some food for a poor man. The guy says, Zalman Moshe says, I'll tell you what, I don't have much food at all. All I have is a cup of smetana. Smetana is like, is cream. And when the cream separates, it's separated into 2 parts, right? You have the whey, and then you have the actual, the stuff that has the protein in it. I have this in my house. That's literally all I have in my house. Come to my house, and I'll give you something. I'll give you the whey. I'll give you the watery part, but only on one condition. The one condition is you have to tell me, Al Teferd, you old horse, why are you giving me the bad part and keeping the good part for yourself? That's bittul, by the way. That's what bittul is about. What are you doing? So imagine, he's literally giving about the last drop of food he has in his house. And he wants to be certain that he has no pride in giving this last drop of food. Okay, they go to the house. And Reb Zalman Moshe takes the 2 cups in his hand. And the guy says, can I please have my cup? He says, nope. We have a deal. You got to say it. He's like shaking. Here's a rabbi who's been praying from 7 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's a visage of holiness and greatness. I'm going to call him you old horse. He's holding on tight. He's not giving it up. Finally, he pushes it out of his mouth. He's starving. Al Tefer, what are you doing? You're holding on to the good stuff and giving me the bad stuff? What does Zalman Moshe do? He gives him the good stuff. And he drinks the bad stuff himself. This is a story of Hasidus. When you give what you need. Not only do you give your extra, and when you give, you don't give thinking what a great person you are for giving. You give because you have bittul. This is what Hashem wants from you. This is Hashem's demand from us. So I just want to wish everybody here, Chas v'shalom, we should never have to feel this pressure, but we should always be able to give from amplitude, from wealth. We should be able to give plenty and give with a full heart and always be cognizant of our ability to literally transform the world in a positive way. And hopefully the next Zoom meeting will not be on Zoom, it'll be all together in Jerusalem, in the Holy Temple, with the coming of Mashiach, and let's all say Amen.
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 Thank you
Nice
very,
to
very
meet you
much,
all.
Rafi.
Rabbi.
Thank you,
Mr.
Rabbi.
Koyach, a big, big thank you.
Okay, be well.
Okay.
Sei gesund.
Sei gesund.